Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes ball. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Wolves Fancast. Wolves are back to scoring, they're back to winning ways. Yes, I know the 1-0 win wasn't the most exciting of games, particularly in the first half, but that's why me and Stu are here today to hopefully bring a bit of joy to your lives with everything else going on in the world. As always, we're proud to be part of the 90 Min Football Network. Go check them out at 90min.com. Stu, let's get right into it. You went down to Brighton yesterday. How was the journey? Because it's for a midweek game in the build, like a bit of foresight, don't you think? Just,
I mean, for context, I mean, everyone go and read Daniel Story's piece on the iNews that he went to Plymouth versus Sunderland on Saturday, which they left for a 3:00 kickoff. They had to leave Plymouth at 4:30 in the morning. So, for a bit of context, we get it quite easy at being in the middle of everything. But yeah, I mean, for the video people, you can see the state of my eyes. We left at 2:00. There was horrendous traffic all the way there. We were always going to go straight in anyway because we didn't know about the COVID nonsense and how long that would take to get in. So we were never going to have a pub stop for a change. But because it was so bad, the driver's taco ran out. So we were like, "Oh no, we're scrambling now. We're going to either pull over on the hard shoulder, or if there's a services anywhere near here, we'll pull in there." And as luck would have it, we found the services that were selling that had a fridge in the Smiths that had a few bottles and cans and stuff. So we kind of had a bit of a jolly boys outing on in the Costa coffee drinking area of these services. So 2 coachfuls of people just turning up out of the blue, which was a different experience. But yeah, it was horrendous journey, and we left at 2:00. We got in the ground at 7:20.
okay. So yeah, a marathon.
Yeah, it was a marathon, not Snickers. But yeah, it was. By the time we got there, the queue for the COVID stuff was round from. If anyone knows who's been to Brighton before, where you go down the steps and the weigh-ins right opposite you, it had snagged around the left-hand side and it gone all the way around what's like the cliff face kind of thing, and it was almost into the home area. Because so you're talking 500-600 people were queuing there, and by that point, with 10 minutes to go, they just abandoned it all. Sorry,
did they?
So then they were just letting a certain amount of people into the barricades, get through the turnstiles, and then let another lot through. They weren't even scanning people with their security wands. It was just because the whole thing of we're going to do spot checks. It seemed like that was the intention to start with. We had a few, 1 in 10 or whatever. Then to 1 in 5, and it seemed like they were doing everyone at one point, and it just got backed up, and it completely failed. And then they just had to abandon all practices and just let everyone in as normal, which was obviously great.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably do an entire podcast around, I guess, COVID procedures around football, and judging by the news today, there's even uncertainty whether Wolves will be playing at the weekend. But weirdly, it taps into a question we'll have later on in a way that at least if it's at Brighton, it's a relatively, friendly ground to be at. I can't imagine, let's say, if that queue's building up against the Villa, for example, and people have been drinking, and it's, people are starting to get a bit agitated and X, Y, and Z. But at least you made it in,
Yeah, and we saw kick off, which was amazing, really, in the circumstances that we found ourselves with when we didn't even leave the services until I think it was about 20 to 7. and we were thinking, oh well, we'll see the second half. But yeah, to be fair, the Droid did really well, and we got through it all. But yeah, it was a similar situation at Leicester though in the first game of the season, which that wasn't COVID, but it was like they'd forgot how to judge a crowd, and they were so like being so vigorous with the searches with the security. It was just the ones that they might as well have been. I mean, you get thrown out of a strip club for the way they were acting. But it was like touching up central with everyone, and it got to the stage where he was pissing down rain as well, and that did start getting nasty. And in the end, they gave up there as well. So yeah, you are right. Brighton being the friendly place that it is, they got lucky. And if this carries on, which who knows how long it's going to carry on for, they're going to have to sort something out properly because people won't stand for it. And I think yesterday, because people hadn't necessarily had a drink before they got there, on the whole, it was kind of okay. Everyone kind of accepted it, and it was the first time for away fans anyway. But yeah, it's a recipe for disaster. And we should point out as well, COVID has stricken us. That's why there's only two of us today.
Yeah, well, I was going to say COVID and hangovers. Let's be honest. You know,
Yeah, some of us are a disgrace.
Yeah, you know.
No names.
We won't name names on this, even if they were called the most reasonable voice in the fancast several days ago, to then bottle out. You know, just saying, we don't like to issue fines. You know, in the run up to Christmas in the fancast, but you know, sometimes you got to lead with the iron fist, haven't you?
Exactly.
But should we talk a bit about the game? Because first, lineup wise, we knew Jimenez wasn't going to start. I guess it was a question of how we're going to line up at the front. And he went Trincao, Adama, Podence. I mean, I was going to say, were you happy with it, or were you at least content because it doesn't look great on paper, so to speak? I wasn't exactly inspired with confidence, as opposed to some maybe I've been more confident if you've gone Hwang or Silva personally, just because they're a bit more forwardy.
Yeah. I was shocked that Traore didn't start just because of his history with his good friend Dan Burn and what a torrid time he's given him over the last 3 or 4 years. And obviously, Bruno Lage wasn't here then, so but you'd imagine that he's seen the tapes like he said he had. That was the only one.
Oh, yeah, so I just realised I said Hwang started and not Traore. Sorry, forgive me.
Just brush over. It doesn't matter. We're all
I was going to
friends.
say no. So someone will pick it up. So apologies. Yeah, I'd have. Yeah, I'd have still gone Silva personally, but that's a debate for later on.
Yeah, I think him not even starting in this situation. I think we all said. We might have said it in the week as well in the podcast from after that game, where if Fabio doesn't start when Jimenez is not available, then you've got to ask, especially against a team like Brighton, who are not one of the big hitters, then you've got to start asking questions. And I'm presuming that we'll get onto that later. But it was no surprise for me because he's hardly featured whatsoever so far. Yeah. But the only shock for me was Traore not playing. And I've been one of his biggest critics anyway this season. But in that situation against them players that he's tortured so many times, it was a bit of a shock.
Yeah, especially what happened when he actually did come on. And, you know, I was surprised, to be honest, because, you know, Brighton, as they sort of showed yesterday, aren't a team who sit really deep and invite pressure and make it difficult for someone like Traore. They do play really open, you know, to their detriment, frankly. And the other shame, which, you know, happened sort of relatively before kickoff, was Aït-Nouri having to drop out.
Yeah.
Just because of the form he's been in recently. And I don't think we kind of quite know at the moment the severity of it and, you know, whether he'll be back for Sunday.
No, it doesn't look good, does it, when you pull up in the warm-up? And when they've said now that it was a recurring injury from the week before, you think, oh no, here we go again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that was one of them things where someone had put it in the group chat about him doing it in the warm-up. As we got into our seats, and then we looked and that he's not Aït-Nouri, is it?
Yeah.
And it was kind of like your heart sinks a bit because Marcel hadn't been great in his last performance. Way back in October, amazingly.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of easy to forget that I guess Marcel started the season, and it's only been in the last like 6 weeks. But I mean, we've had an international break as well. Don't get me wrong, but how easily Aitnoi's kind of embedded himself into his team, and he's almost been an automatic first choice because of his defensive work and his work going forward. And it did feel a bit of a downgrade when you see Marcel. I kind of did go. Obviously, I was disappointed he was injured, but I was like, oh, I feel like we are weaker having Marcel in the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a shame. As you said, you got to the game about 10 minutes before kickoff. At what point did you kind of go, I could have coped if I'd have been, 10, 15 minutes late as well? Because the first half an hour, 40 minutes was tough viewing. And I was watching it on, our good friends at Amazon Prime. No, it was BT Sport even, who are still our good friends, don't worry. But yeah, it felt a slog to watch, and I can't really put my finger on why.
It was just, I think it was one of them where it followed the pattern of so many away games. Again, like we talked about in the week, about like Palace away, how bad that was, Leeds away, how bad that was, Villa for 60, 70 minutes, where we just had no ambition whatsoever. And it was like, okay, let's keep the ball, let's pass it amongst ourselves along the back line, back five, then go again, and then let's maybe go into midfield for a bit and then pass it backwards. And it was just, it wasn't even a variation on a theme. It was the theme again. And I think everyone went down at halftime kind of, well, thinking they were going to get down at halftime pretty deflated until the inevitable happened. And Moroccan Maldini saved us all. But yeah, the first 40 minutes proper dragged.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was personified, and I'm almost quite glad I didn't get the tweet out in time. But in the build, so to speak, for the goal itself, Podence won free kick right on the edge of the box, and that was almost like the first thing we'd really done. It was incisive, it was great attacking play, it was building into something, and he got tripped up on the edge of the box. You go, oh, hang on, really good chance here. And, I saw it, and Podence steps up for it. Neves is nowhere near. I'm like, okay, this is different. This feels strange. And it was quite frankly one of the worst free kicks I've seen in a long time. And it ended up going, I think it might have even gone out for the corner that led to the goal.
Yeah, it did.
And I think at the time I got like halfway through tweeting, being like, that pretty much sums up Wolves' first half or something along those lines. And then a bit of magic happened.
Yeah.
And
I think if Neves took the free kick, he wouldn't have been in the position he was from the corner either. So, bit of foresight there. But yeah, there was a thing with that free kick. Matt went with me yesterday, and as soon as the free kick got placed, and he went to put money on Neves to score, his finger was hovering over his phone, and I don't think he ever did it, because he never mentioned it again. But it was hovering there, and then because we've seen that in Podence in training, taking free kicks against the Steel Men.
Yeah.
So there was high hopes there, but then, like you said, it all went tits up. But yeah, the Neves, well, what is it? It's just beautiful. That's exactly what it is. I mean, you look there, and it was someone from the club actually said, "How does he even see that?"
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't make any sense.
No, but there is no point where it kind of you go, oh, you can see what he's about to do, and I think it's great that he does try and play a pass, and he does try and like do something with it, because although he is a very good long range shooter, if he tries to shoot there and it deflects off that wall of Brighton players in front of him, we're caught on the break and stuff like that. So he knows he needs to do something with it. But just for vision, so you look where Saiss is, and Saiss just turns into, Ruud van Nistelrooy. Like it's a type of attacking prowess that our strikers should be jealous of in terms of how you can see him looking at Neves. Either it's something they work on in training, or it's just something Saiss is just willing to gamble on. That you know what, if so if Neves has a shot there and it gets parried back out, Saiss is the only one who will be alert to that happening.
Yeah, and
he'll be the only one who want to rebound.
I was just going to say that them working on it in training, because Spears said something about how Big Tony Roberts had smiling down the tunnel after it happened, and then Bruno Lage himself came out later and said they work on second phases all the time.
Yeah,
and so that it would make perfect sense for this is why Neves saw this, because it was planned.
Yeah,
maybe not with Saiss being there, maybe with someone else. I mean, who knows? Why would Saiss be trying to take a right-footed volley when he's left-footed and a defender? But if it was planned, exactly, his foot is like Bob Ross's paintbrush. It was perfectly executed and brilliantly finished off. It was delirium. I mean, not having scored a goal for what seems like a whole year.
Yeah,
there was going to be chaos when it actually happened anyway. But when a goal went in of this quality, it was just absolute bedlam.
And I think you've sort of highlighted a really kind of key point in that. The finish as well.
Yeah.
Like it was his weak foot, and it's just perfectly just guided into the bottom corner. It's not rash. He's not tried to, put too much on it, because he just knows that he's ended up in a position where he's 8 yards out. No one's expected it. I just thought it was just the little things, isn't it, sometimes? And when you've had a really crap journey to an away game, we've been in. Could you say we've been in bad form? I mean, we've barely scored in. We haven't scored in the last few games anyway. So you could sort of argue that we're not doing what's needed in front of goal. But that just reminds me why you love football.
Yeah, and as soon as it happened, it reminded me. I turned into the man and I just said it. It reminded me of the one for the Bolly scored against Besiktas, where he picked him out from nowhere.
Yeah,
it reminded me of a very similar kind of thing to that. And there was one against Villa as well, where in the similar kind of position. So it's obviously something that they've worked on, and something that I don't think any of us are going to give them any credit for. They're working the second phase, and how ridiculously we don't seem to be threatened by set pieces, when last season it was the complete opposite.
Yeah. I think the second phase is one of a really big one, and them not panicking with it and just knowing what to do. Because we get enough corners, and I mean, let's be honest, we're terrible at taking corners. I think Marcel was on corners for one part, and I actually quite like Marcel as a player, although I said he's a bit of a downgrade on Aït-Nouri. But if he's on your corners, I feel like that asks questions of other players on the pitch, personally. But the fact that they know what to do, and some of them are just switched on in the moment, and they know that if the ball breaks out to Neves, people are going to charge him because they want to stop him shooting first and foremost. But now, knowing that he can do that as well, are they going to give him an extra half a yard of space 20 yards out?
Well, exactly. You can either charge him or leave him alone now.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the whole thing with Traore as well. When you think, well, if he's got three men on him, then there's space for someone else. It never works out like that.
Yeah.
But the options are going to start to appear now, which is something that we've lacked for a long time.
Yeah, and I think kind of with Neves as a whole in his form this season, one of my observations of Neves was it's a pretty obvious one. He doesn't do those big raking passes like he used to in the Championship, and part of that is because we're up against better players who can close him down better and can mark his teammates better, but also he's not quite as quick to be able to do it. But actually, that seems to have changed now, and he seems to have just developed that ability to find that extra half yard of space as well. It will be able to get it out his feet just that tenth of a second quicker to be able to do something with it. And I think that assist is just indicative of his form at the moment and the confidence he's playing with. Because
I mean,
another day he might, a year ago, what does he do in that situation? Because it ain't that.
yeah, it'd be blasted over the bar. I mean, I kind of said that I expected it to hit the seagull on the back wall, but if he'd started lining up for a free kick in the first place. But I mean, that was a shock when his long range shot was actually on target as well and not blazed over. Because I
Yeah.
thought, well, where's this coming from? This is
Mhm.
new. Yeah, I mean, when I put that tweet out from my own account about 6 weeks ago or something like that, where when he'd started to grow his hair like Perlo, and he probably got something like 600 likes or whatever it was, and it was kind of a joke at first because obviously that's his idol as well, but he really is turning into Pirlo. The way he moves now, the way he holds himself, passes like this, it's getting to the stage now where he's been playing as well in the Premier League as he played in the Championship for us. And
Yeah.
it's something that we thought would happen straight away, but it's took a different manager in a different kind of way. I mean, Martinho's, you got to give him credit as well because they've shared the workload perfectly. I did think he was good last night as well, but how they've their kind of reorganisation in midfield, not having him chase from side to side, and him on the right and Martino on the left, or vice versa, whichever they're patrolling, has worked wonders. And he's freed in a way, which is all what we begged for the whole of last season.
Yeah, because I think you can see with Neves, he's such a talented player. He can play a defensive midfield role. He can play a bit further forward. He can do whatever you need to in that midfield. Just let him do it. Just give him the freedom to be able to. And I think it's a really good point on Martino as well, and his form for a lot of this season. And with Martino, I think someone tweeted us last week sort of saying, "Oh, why doesn't he get many goals or assists?" It's like because his game isn't about that really, really raw output. And actually, you can a lot of time you only know if Martino is having a good game because you sort of notice if he's having a bad one. So like yesterday, he didn't do anything ridiculously flash. There weren't any huge standout moments in passes or last minute blocks, but the game flowed.
Yeah.
For a large part of it, particularly in the second half for Wolves. And I bet if you actually just focus on what Martino's doing, you go, hang on, he hasn't misplaced a pass in 20 minutes.
Well, there was times in that first half where he looked like the fittest bloke on the pitch.
Yeah.
And not taking into account that he played pretty much on his own in midfield against Man City a few days earlier at his age. It's just incredible professional player. Everything about the bloke is just superb, and I think we all kind of was umming and ahhing, would he be able to carry it on for another year? And he surpassed anything we expected.
Yeah. And I sort of think with Martino as well, there's that he's got more range as well in terms of what that next step is. So, like, if he plays Wolves next season, that his role might slightly change in the pitch and he might become a little bit more of a sitter and just be a proper patrolman in front of that back line. Or we might even do kind of what Neves does. And you know what? We're just going to play him a bit further forward. That's where he's going to pick up space and get the pockets. And you just sort of think that he can still do it all. But there's nothing that you can't think, oh, he struggles with. He's still Wolves' best tackler.
Yeah.
He doesn't miss headers. It's
He's
crazy.
he's our best tackler, but his ability to not get booked is still quite incredible.
It's fantastic. The apologetic incredulity he sometimes displays. We'll move on. I guess it was only moments after the Wolves goal that then Brighton missed an absolute sitter. I'd argue I can't remember last time I've seen one that bad. I know it was bouncing, it was a bit away from him, but still, like,
Yeah. A lot of people had gone down to get a pint by this point. And we obviously, us being seasoned professionals, hadn't. We were still there. And it was just disbelief. I can't think. I mean, the one that came to mind was Carnu for Albion from
Yeah.
under the bar. But seeing one live like that, it's. I mean, Sarr has not claimed the ball like you'd expect him to in that situation in the first hand, and as it drops into his path, and you think he could just fall on this and it'll go in.
Yeah,
Absolutely no idea.
Could have taken a touch if he needed to. It did bring me on to something interesting because it kind of, for me, it showed that when you looks in for Wolves, but from what I can see, Brighton's luck isn't particularly in, and the natives are getting restless there, Stu. I don't know if you saw this picture of the Potter out poster, but it is potentially my favourite. I've pulled it up on screen. It is a man holding an A3, I want to say, bit of card saying Potter out, but he has horrendously misjudged the size of his font. And I looked at it, Stu, and you know what I thought? Should have gone landscape for starters.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do a poster which you're gonna bring to a game, I think landscape, because I think it's gonna be easier to fit. You got two words, 2 lines, job done. Stencil it out, man.
I mean,
I don't think it's too hard.
You look at the guys either side of him, and they look very shameful. And I think the one bloke there is not hiding his face because it was cold, because it wasn't last night. We were down to shirt sleeves. It was warm in the Amex for the first time ever. But yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand. I mean, obviously we're not Brighton fans. We don't see it every weekend, and there'd be similar things from fans all over the country saying, "Oh, how could you possibly want Nuno gone?" and all that stuff last season. So who are we to judge? But from what you watch of Brighton and from what their abilities, and he's been there a few years, Saiss, and if they don't think they're progressing, then fine, that's up to them. But it seems baffling when they have chances every week to bury teams and just constantly miss them all the time.
Yeah, I mean, Wolves lost the XG battle yesterday pretty much because of that missed sitter. I think that was pretty much classed as a goal, whereas Wolves wasn't. But going into the second half, Traore's on. We seem to be a little bit more progressive in the counter attack, and we do have quite a few sort of one-on-ones. But one of the things that I found interesting was Traore actually picked the pass.
Yeah, it was his best performance of the season, easily.
It was like Bruno said to him, wasn't it? Look, have 5 touches, then just pass it to someone else. Don't worry about shooting yourself. Just let Podence miss instead.
Yeah, there was that one from where we were behind the goal. It seemed like he could have gone a bit further upfield, and it looked like he passed it too soon. But then watching it back on the highlights, he made the right decision again. And it's almost like they found where his brain was stored and put it back in his head, because he was almost like a different player yesterday in terms of his actual football intelligence. And I know there's people are going to say, "Oh, he's not got a brain," and all this stuff, and we joke about it, but that's been a massive part of the problem with him for 4 years.
Yeah.
And Bruno said that he's been working with him and they're trying. Yesterday was the first example I've seen where he's been different, and it was for the team rather than himself. Which you think, wow, where's this come from? This is all we've ever asked for. And the misses and the mess up where he should have played Raul in a few weeks ago, and the shot against the bar, being rash and stuff like this. Yeah, maybe that's played a part of it. Maybe that was the reason. That was the thing, the light bulb moment in his head to think, okay, maybe I do need to knuckle down, and maybe I do need to look up once in a while. But yesterday, absolutely couldn't fault him whatsoever.
No, I think my sort of one when it came to the Raul one where hit the crossbar is just like, you're not a great finisher. Why? I understand it because he seems to want to sort of just push on himself, but just take less accountability and responsibility. Pick the option that's actually easier for you, or and it just seemed on. He just seemed to get it that he wasn't trying to take on that extra man. He wasn't trying to push it that extra 5 yards and potentially lose it. And to be fair, he wins free kicks for fun, and it's not like he dives or anything like that. It's not like because I hate the phrase, to be honest. He's good at winning free kicks because it usually implies that you're not quick enough. Traore just gets fouled, and so it affects his confidence a lot. Instead of him sort of driving him on, he seems to get upset that people kind of constantly foul him on the turn, and then he shies away a bit, or he kind of loses his mettle. But he just seemed to be in control.
Yeah, you can see when he takes it to heart he's normally in that kind of pose where his legs are out straight and he hits the ground with both fists. And we've seen that reaction loads of times, and after that, his mind does seem to wander. But yeah, he was focused. I mean, it might be a bit of a mental thing to say, but that first 20 minutes of the second half for me was the most complete performance we've had all season. Just in how we were completely under control of things. Defensively, we were solid. Midfield had it locked down for the majority of the time, and we actually looked a threat going forward. There was no pissing about. We just looked like we had a complete plan, and it was really impressive to watch. And when you go from the complete opposite of that in the first 40 minutes of the game, where it was so turgid and dull, to then coming up and putting that kind of performance in. I mean, you look at the chances that we had. I mean, Spears put a thing in the week about how our front line, their goal scoring records before coming to Wolves is quite piss poor. So why do you expect them to score now? Because Raul did, but he's a one-off. And it's kind of like in RoboCop 2, where they tried to make a new one, and you got that one that pulls its own head off because it can't cope with not being a human anymore. The one that shoots itself. It's like, well, yeah, Alex Murphy was a one-off. You don't get this every day of the week. So our problem all season was our defense. It's not, though, is it? It's getting someone to actually score, and that was more evident than anything yesterday.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And I mean, even Trincao had a couple of chances as well, and I still can't quite make my mind upon him.
I thought it was his best performance as well.
Yeah,
but second half
feels like there's something missing though. I couldn't tell you what.
I don't know if it came across as well on the telly as it did in person, because his upper body strength for the second half, he had some, which again, how's this happened? He was putting himself about. He wasn't jumping out of tackles. He was leaving his footing and not shying away from it. He was again making the correct decision, which he's, other than the Watford game away, where he seemed to be superb in that first half before the chance, and he just looked as promising as we were led to believe, and as what I saw in the games against the also rans of La Liga when he was playing for Barca. But again, it was his best performance. Second half, first half, he was the same as everyone else, and he was exactly as you'd expect Trincao to play at Brighton on a Wednesday night in December.
Yeah.
Second half was the opposite there. So again,
I think the person who kind of linked it all together in those regards is Podence, who did miss a couple of chances, but again, he was probably one few bright sparks in the first half an hour, and then again second half. I think we talk about him quite a lot just because he's someone who, when he plays and he gets a couple of games, he looks good, and he looks like he can do something, particularly against an opposition like Brighton. But it's just about him being able to get a run of games under his belt. And I think he was kind of key for that interlinkingness between Trincao and Traore and himself to actually get the ball moving, from, I guess, just inside our own half, past the halfway line, and really kind of stretching their back line.
Yeah. And he was the two highlights of the match when he out-jumped Dan Burn which
Yes.
was just fucking outrageous. It should never happen in a million years.
Like that is proper glitch in the Matrix stuff, isn't it?
People were genuinely looking around at each other, like, how is it? Well, why has this happened? But just
yeah.
baffling.
It truly is. I mean, the only area of the pitch we've not really talked about is defensively. And to be honest, second half, even when there was 10 plus minutes of added time, I never felt phased or worried that Brighton were going to score. They just didn't. And I don't quite know it's because Brighton are Brighton, without sort of sounding too harsh on them. And I said a similar thing against Southampton as well. And to be honest, about most teams in the division, the difference between a bang average Premier League team and a good team is having a striker who can score you goals regularly. And they play good football, play all right at the back most of the time. But I was not worried at all with 20 minutes to go. But I just thought Cody's playing well. Saiss is killing it. Kilman's, well, he's just Max Kilman, isn't he? Just you know, I say, and Star steps up as and when needed. It's just a solid all-round defensive performance as well to shut them out.
We just don't even need to talk about it anymore because it's kind of expected now.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, when I said that we'd finish 16th, it was on the basis that our defense was shit.
Yeah.
And that's what I said. And honestly, looking at it going into the season with them three at the back, obviously, Cody looked a bit out of sorts last season. I had no doubt about Kilman, but I thought, well, he might get dragged down to their level. And Saiss was a wild card. But you look at his performance yesterday, and he was like a man possessed.
Yeah. Again, I'm telling you, he's fine to play up front.
Well, has he got the third most goals now in the last 18 months or something?
Yeah, I mean, I saw somebody online, I cannot remember who, did like the Premier League comparison between like Saiss and Harry Kane. And it's like both 17 games, Saiss 2 goals, Harry Kane 1. And it made me laugh. And then I thought, yeah, but put him next to like 6 of our players.
Yeah.
You know, it might not read great either. But yeah, if I say, just it feels very repetitive now that we're saying Kilman had a good game. I mean, that seems just to be a really big thing, but also Cody as well. And again, Sonny's had his critics. We've been critical of him on here sometimes. Same with Saiss and Moutinho as well. That sort of players who have been around a bit now. We've seen a lot of them, I guess. But they're all just doing their jobs.
And there was one person as well that I actually mentioned anywhere online, which was shock horror because he did nothing wrong. And that was Nelson Semedo yesterday. He was just he actually went, again, listening and knowing your job and doing your job. He was going forward and he was taking people on. Something we haven't really seen that much of from him. We've seen it in patches, but yesterday he looked like he wanted to do it and he wasn't scared anymore.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's been away from Molyneux and the what was it, the Wolfisms or whatever Dave Jones called it that once. But yeah, he's just developed into what we all really knew he was. And
yeah, and the interchange he had with Traore as well.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I like Semedo to be, and there's a couple of points in the second half where I just sort of thought, you know what, any of the similar with Nori against Man City, where it's like, can we just dispel the rumours or any notion that Nori is bad defensively? Can we just do that with Semedo now as well, and just sort of line in the sand? He is actually a really good defensive player because he made a couple of mistakes last season, but apart from that, he hasn't. Yeah. His last 12 months at Wolves since in 2021 must be one of our top 5 performers.
Yeah, easily. And I said this to Gully though, and I said this last season that he would be scapegoated when we came back. People would not appreciate him because he had a few ricks to start with and the penalty against Villa, and so people will be on his back for no reason at all because that's what fans do. But I thought yesterday, well, there was times where, like we were saying about having no kind of fear that they'd score in the last 10 minutes. When someone was up against him, I don't worry anymore.
No.
So I know because you got, and they kind of showed it on Match Today because I watched that this afternoon when I tried to recover a bit of sleep, and they showed how when one's out of position, someone else automatically drops back into place. But he's very rarely the one out of position. He's covering for other people as well. And he was doing that last season to his own detriment because he was doing 3 people's jobs. Now he doesn't have to do that. He can stay in his own place where he's supposed to be. And he's got to be up there with successful takedowns of one-on-ones. He has to be.
Yeah.
I can't remember too many where anyone's got past him.
Yeah. And I refuse to believe that, having Kilman alongside of him as well, like that must massively help him. It is no surprise all of those players are kind of playing well and they have each other's backs, and just that extra support Semedo gets from Kilman, which he wasn't getting last season because that player kept changing. It could have been Bolly, it was Saiss, Cody played there once, wasn't exactly consistent. Then Donker played there as well. It wasn't consistent. He has played 16 games maybe this season, something like that, next to Kilman. And they just seem to just know what they're doing. Could he be a bit more of an attacking output in the same way Doherty was? Yes. But as a right wing back, is it his job to fully chip in with 5 goals a season? Or, as you alluded to, actually our attacking players are the ones who are needed to score goals, and none of them really have much of a track record of it.
No. I've been impressed with him all season. I know we kind of we touched on it at the start when he came in, but I thought Marcel was superb yesterday.
Yeah,
defensively, I thought he was solid. I mean, he's nonsense in his play acting. It's just comical now. And the bit where he was off the pitch when they had a corner in the first half, and he rolled back on, and then he was doing this bouncing up and down thing, and you think you know what you're doing. You know exactly what you're doing, and the ref came over and he was laughing at him, and he was going to say, "Come on," but
he is either a bit of a heel, or he is genuinely like a little bit mental, and I don't know which one I'd rather it be, because it's not like he does rash challenges or anything like that, but he seems to have a at least a bachelor's in the dark arts.
Yeah.
I
think he's in the same kind of insanity category that Jose Sarri is at times.
Yeah,
they've both got that kind of look about them.
Yeah, and Saiss as well, or do you think Saiss is like a cut above?
I think he's Saiss is in his own little Saiss world. I don't think there's anyone else like him in the whole Premier League. I mean, like when he said it in his interview with, I presume it was Kelly Summers, and he said, "Can I have a bit of respect for the finish?" or something like that. You think, well, you've hit it with you've side foot placed volleyed it into the bottom corner with your wrong foot, and you're coming on throwing shade at interviewers.
Just doesn't even know what's been talked about.
No one else would do that. He's brilliant.
I mean, I said I genuinely wasn't sure if he'd be here this season because I thought he plays in a few positions. He sort of feels like he's the next, like, in depth chart, how you want to describe it. That's the next area we need to improve. But he's a really good player to have in the squad, and you can see just the character from the fun side, but the leader he is as well, and the fact that sometimes you do take a lot of, footballers take a lot of flack, is particularly sometimes how Wolves act, and he just is someone who goes, "Don't worry, guys, I'll take it all on. Don't worry, I will be the pantomime villain at the Etihad, and you know what, you do what you do. Let you concentrate on that." So yeah, again, let's say I think if we're judging by the second half, particularly that back line, everyone did their jobs. Who would you give your man of the match to, though?
I was thinking of this on the way back, and I was umming and ahhing between. I did think of Marcel for a lot of the time, just because I thought he was so unexpected for him, not just for him being there at all, but for that performance that he put in. But for me, Saiss was superb, but I think Neves was a class above anyone else on the pitch yesterday.
Yeah, I'd racked my brains for it, and if you move away first half an hour, and even you just focus on the second half, the fact that we were moving the ball forwards and we're solid at the back kind of implies the midfield must be doing their job. And you look at the assist as well, and I say you could have given it to about 4 different players, but I think I'm going to go Neves as well. I think that's I'd be fascinated to go through these review pods we've done this season, because I think he might be leading them by a country mile at this rate.
It'll be Neves, Kilman, and Sarr. That'll be the top 3.
Yeah, I think it just shows that he has reached that level, which we all knew he would. We're going to be back after this.
I was going to say, who did BT give it to?
I can't remember. I think it might have been. I can't remember. I want to say Saiss.
Well, they were interviewing Saiss, but I thought that was because of the goal, but it doesn't really matter. I was going to know before we go for the break, the little football freestyle show between Trinco and Prudence in the corner flag was
just
even the Brighton fans who they were looking on it quite bemused at what was going on with everyone outlaying them every time one of them didn't touch the floor with the ball. But they started joining in as well after about the 8th minute of the ref not coming back. It's just something I don't think I've ever seen before.
No, it was just like we're a bit bored. There was something very childlike, innocent in it.
Yeah,
where it didn't they'd be doing that if they were at training and someone had forgotten the bibs.
Yeah.
Or something like that. It wasn't like they were playing to the crowd or anything like that. It was just like, with 2 footballers who are a bit bored, let's just knock this about until we can go again.
Yeah, it was very weird, but incredibly entertaining at the same time.
Were you disappointed more players didn't join them? Or did it work just for 2 of them for you?
I think if anyone else had joined in, it would have been taking the piss a little bit. Because to be fair to them, everyone else seemed to be kind of keeping themselves limber, and they were warming up and throwing their arms around and stuff. And them 2 were just pissing about. So it's just great to see.
I'd argue though they're keeping warmer better than any others.
They're mentally more switched on. So
yeah, they've got the ball at their feet, which is it. Right. Let's go for a break. We're going to talk a little bit about Fabio Silva, and then we're just going to go right into some Twitter corner questions because we've got some good ones. We'll be back right after this. Hi, it's Richard from Wolves Fancast here. Just interrupting today's show before we get back to some questionable opinions and opinionated questions to talk to you a little bit about our sponsors, Pixel Yeti Media. They are a design agency that put you and your business first, from web design, logo and branding design and marketing. If you have any marketing needs, get in touch with them to find out how they can help you get it right. They are over at pixelyetimedia.com. Now let's get back to a show where we can give you some really forced wordplay, niche cultural references, and maybe even a bit of football talk.
Attention parents and students, we have an incredible exclusive offer from our friends at ProPrep. This is the perfect study tool for university students undertaking science, technology, engineering or maths related modules. It can halve your study time. ProPrep provides bite-sized videos relevant to the module or course which can be accessed from any device at any time. It has already helped over 500,000 students pass their exams. They provide customized STEM study tools that match your syllabus. Long lectures are condensed into short and clear video tutorials. After the video, you can go through what you've already learned with interactive exercises and practice questions so you'll be ready. You can even submit questions to the ProPrep professors and receive a video answer within 24 hours. ProPrep created a special offer just for our listeners. All you need to do is go to their website, proprep.uk/info/football for more information, and our listeners can sign up today for a free 30-day trial. No credit card information required. That's proprep.uk/info/football. ProPrep, the ultimate study tool. Attention parents and students, we have an incredible...
Hello, welcome back. Apparently, the advert decided to play it twice over. We are back. Hello. What I want to talk about was Fabio Silva, because as we said, he didn't start yesterday. And it kind of just made me think, what the hell is going on here? Does Largo not rate him? Does he not quite see it? Does he need to go out and learn? What are your thoughts on him?
I think his time's up, to be honest. I think it's been a complete monumental failure on everyone's part. It was a gamble because we wouldn't have been able to sign him after the Brexit deadline. I think that's pretty obvious now. I know it's pretty harsh to say, yeah, he hasn't moved on, but you can't be paying that money in our situation for someone who has not moved on and progressed in any way, shape, or form, other than getting a little bit bigger physically since he signed.
And he's got a sleeved hat.
Yeah, all in it. I mean, Luke did say once he bulks up and gets a sleeve, and he has a buzz cut, and then we know he's been serious about things, but he hasn't cut his hair, has he? So, and it's a travesty to all of us in that the opposite camp. But now, I just think he needs to leave. Be that. No one's going to spend anything more. I mean, how much would anyone pay for him at this point? You're talking, what, 8 million, maybe? I think you'd be lucky to get that, because what's he done since he's been here? He's got a penalty at Burnley away, and the game was lost. He scored a couple, the one against the Albion, and he's just not shown enough for me at all. I mean, I don't like slagging him off because he's a kid, and I said he should be sent into League Two last season. But again, we had no choice last season, and that's probably gone against him now and ruined him a little bit, because he seems to have picked up a few bad habits. There's been questions about his attitude already, which is never a good thing. And once that starts coming out, then it's a slippery slope. And how he kind of stormed off down the tunnel at full time yesterday rather than coming over to the fans like everyone else did. You think, well, come on, get a grip of yourself. I mean, what are you playing at there? It's like Jamie O'Hara behaviour. And for me, I would send him anywhere possible in January just to get him out of the place, because he clearly needs a break from it all. He clearly needs to be somewhere that's not Wolverhampton and Molineux. Be that league. I mean, I know I got cited in the group chat for saying he should go down to League One, because I don't think he's going to the Championship. Who would possibly take him? What Championship club would take him on loan with his record that he hasn't got? I think he needs to go somewhere where he's going to be challenged physically, if it's in this country, or he needs to go somewhere like back to somewhere in Portugal, maybe somewhere in the Ukraine or somewhere like that, somewhere out of the spotlight a little bit. The spotlight from England anyway, just to get a few goals under his belt and get a few games, a run of games, because he's not going to get it here. He can't be playing in the 23s with the price tag, which again is not his fault. It's just a complete mess, and yet another complete farce and fuck up for me. And it's unfortunate for him. Obviously, it's unfortunate for us, because what that money could have been spent on that we needed at the time, rather than someone like that. A vanity project that's failed miserably, that doesn't seem to have a happy ending in sight for anyone.
Well, I think for me, I'm not quite sure I'd agree with all your points quite necessarily to a degree, but I see where you're coming from, which seems like a really polite way of me telling you I don't, doesn't it? But I do kind of get it.
Everyone's
like-
going to come and say what they think of what I said anyway, so
Yeah,
it doesn't
but
matter.
I do. For me, it's they don't seem to have a plan for him, and he is a young player who, all right, if you sign a player for that price tag, of that age, you need to have a plan, and it doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter if it's Nuno or Bruno. That development needs to be fixed. So, like last season, it was, very much keep him at the club, give him 20 minutes here and there. Of course, then we had Raul injury and William Jose coming in and him having to play, which wasn't the plan. Now, this season, right, we got a new manager, but he just ain't playing. He is getting 10 minutes, if that, and he's not coming on even if we need a goal because for one reason or another. So, if Fosun / Wolves rate him, of which I don't quite know if they do to the same degree now, because it's not like they're putting out socials and scoring in training and all of that jazz that they would do if they really wanted to highlight him. But get him out on loan, get him playing regular football. Look what it's done for Gibbs White. I know Gibbs White's a couple of years older, but footballers need to be playing football to improve. It is so basic. What we can argue about what level he's good enough for. I personally think he'd be able to play in the Championship, just because I think there is such a gulf between Premier League and Championship. And right, he might need I think if he plays for half decent one, he will get chances, and we can see he's a good finisher. We've seen that he can actually score goals in Premier League, so I think he'd probably just about do it in the Championship. But he's probably on an absolute wage at Wolves, of which it makes it very difficult. And you're right in terms of it being a massive mess up. In terms of what was it? 35 million. I know some of it's add-ons, some of it's clauses and X, Y, and Z. But if you go on brass tacks, that we could get two players for 16 million, which is what Wolves like to do in a transfer window. We like to sign players for 15 million to 18 million. That's what our level is. And as I say, for me, it's just that we don't seem to know. Either Bruno doesn't rate him, or they don't quite know what they want to do with him, and that's not a good place for footballers to be in.
No, I think it would help the fact that we've got like a loans pathway manager now.
Yeah.
So if he is sent out and they are looking for somewhere proper for him to go, rather than just saying, "Well, you fuck off and find your own way," if there is someone at the club like that who is looking ahead, like how successful Gibbs White's loan's been, like you just said, if a deal like that comes up in January, then hurrah, everyone benefits. But there is the exception to the rule, like Foden, who obviously wasn't signed, but he was a young kid with massive promise who never went on loan, barely featured for Man City, and the whole Pep thing that he needs to learn for players in here. And look at him now, and he's still ridiculously young.
Yeah.
So for everyone, we say Gibbs White and the Harry Kane to like Norwich to Millwall and all that stuff. There is the opposite where you can learn from the best and you can develop. So, but for talk of his attitude coming out, that was a massive kind of alarm bell for me.
Isn't it?
Yeah, because you don't want to be. I mean, we've been down this road already with Bright, and look at the state of him now. Kicked out of Coventry, barely played for them. If you got an attitude problem at that age, you ain't going to recover from it because shit sticks, don't. So
yeah, that's that. I genuinely don't quite know what he will do in January, but because he's shown such early promise, I don't know how many years you can write off as developmental at the club and barely playing. And I say for him not to come on the pitch when we've needed goals, and as I say he's supposed to be in theory this understudy to Jimenez, and it feels like now he is on the bench because he is a senior player rather than anything else.
Yeah.
Like, he is not an option. It doesn't feel like he's an option.
Well, the only other option is having a third goalkeeper on there. So
Yeah.
I think it kind of yesterday, in a weird way, proves that we don't need him here. Because I thought, against all odds of Wolves playing a false nine, that how it worked yesterday with how mobile they were and how they all three seemed to interchange at points in the game worked brilliantly. We didn't need a striker, which I know Gully's kind of bashed the case against for a long time, and rightly so, that whenever Wolves play without a striker, it's terrible. Yesterday worked, other than balls into the box, but we're not scoring them anyway. And it was about another thing we should have mentioned in the first half of that quote from Bruno saying how Jimenez with his headband is not the same player.
Yeah.
So is that a kind of, we should have signed a certain striker from Cardiff in the summer who I kind of championed, and then everyone else poo-pooed because he came from Cardiff. That kind of player is someone we haven't got. But if we're not going to play that way because Raul can't head the ball anymore, and he's playing as a kind of false nine himself, there's no place for Fabio Silva anyway.
Yeah.
So it'd be for everyone's benefit for him to go out on loan at least.
But you say he's not our plan B.
No.
But actually, if we do need to stick it in the mixer to someone who isn't, incapacitated to head of a ball, then he's your man. But yeah, as I say, I think it's going to be an interesting one to play out over the course of the next 6 months until the end of this season. Because who knows, he might get a run of games. You never know. What if Jimenez has a hamstring injury, and we're going to need rotation, and Silva starts, so he plays in the cup against Sheffield, and scores a brace and finds his way back into form. But none of that's going to happen unless he bloody plays. So yeah, so I think it was indicative for me him not starting and not really featuring, let's be honest. And even when he came on, he didn't exactly do much. I'm reticent to talk about Chelsea just because I know Dan will cover it, and also I think I wouldn't quite say it's 50-50 whether the game's going to go ahead, but there does seem to be a bit of sway that the weekend games aren't going to go ahead at the moment.
Well, are they playing now? If they're playing now and they had another 3 today, they're only drawing 1 each with Everton. So if they're playing now and they don't get any more between now and say Saturday afternoon, then you guess that the game will be on.
Yeah. So if they get any other injuries or COVID cases where all of a sudden, little old Chelsea don't have a big enough squad. Oh, poor them.
The 48 that are out on loan that they can't recall.
Oh, poor me. Their bench today. To be fair, it does include 2 goalkeepers. That they're in the same boat as us, really, aren't they? But they do have Sal, Niguez, N'Golo and Kante, Andreas Christensen, Trevor Chabalard, Ross Barkley as well. So they've got a few players in reserve, I guess. But poor Chelsea. As you can see, I'm not a huge Chelsea fan. Right. Shall we do some of our Twitter corner questions? Because I did promise you we have got some good ones today. I was a bit worried. No, I wasn't worried, to be honest. I knew me and you could talk about this game for Brighton game for a while, and wasn't going to be a short recording. So brace yourselves in, guys. We got some good ones. We might be here a while.
We haven't even talked about pies either.
We haven't talked about festive pies. We skipped the ref. Don't worry about him. Losing. Connectivity, a bit like we did before this recording. But he also had a very good game as well. Just quietly, it's almost like just let the players play and don't worry about the rest of it. It's perfect.
There's a few moments where you think, oh, come on. But overall, I thought he did okay. For someone who hasn't been dragged down to their level yet.
I was going to say he's not been warped. Hopefully, he'll get to say the same thing as I said to somebody at work within my first couple of weeks when someone joked, we'll drag you down to our level. I went, I'll pull you up to mine, don't worry. And I hope he gets to say that and then immediately regret it for burning bridges in the workplace. Right, anyway, question first up. That guy, Matt Guy, says, after diverting into central London last night on the way back from Brighton, what's your worst away day travel experience? Now, Stu, you've probably had a lifetime of these. Two, I'm going to give. One was a relatively near one via St Andrews, chiefly because the coach was getting bricked.
Standard.
Yeah, which ain't exactly fun. My other one was going down to Wembley for the semi-final, just because the guy who sat next to me was annoying the fuck out of me. Just wanted to talk, and I was traveling down by myself. I had headphones in, Stu. The international,
They don't understand, do they?
No. Just I don't want to hear who you think should be starting. I do not care.
I mean,
and usually, you know me, I quite like to talk, but no, I couldn't have made it clearer. So that I'm not going to say it ruined the day because other things did, but didn't help matters. How about you? I bet yours are going to be far worse than me being like, someone tried to be nice to me on a fucking coach.
There's a couple that jump straight out. Going down to Plymouth on my own on a Tuesday night. It took about 5.5 hours, I think, and that was in the old travel club days when I didn't go on the Hatherton and enjoy myself. So it was on couch one of the travel club, and the bloke, I don't think had washed in a week, and it was proper like pungent BO through every layer of clothing. And like, what can you do? You can't escape it. When I turned the blowers on and faced them towards him, I think, well, come on, at least put it towards the window. But nah, it was, unless his nose was broken. I mean, this was pre-COVID anyway, so there's no excuse. It was just terrible, just terrible. And there was that we felt we lost again as well. And then it was another 4.5 hours back midweek. It was pretty pathetic. I mean, there was another one where we went to Grimsby in December, thinking we were all hard, so we went in just t-shirts. It was in an ITV Sport Channel game on a Friday night, and we asked these coppers where the pub was, so just down there. And we walked in. We had a pint. We were drinking Foster's then for whatever reason, and it was so off. It tasted like how you'd imagine the fermented egg on Celebrity Tastes. It was so bad. And so we had it. It was the first part of the day as well, so neck quite a lot of it as your first attempt, and it was proper gone. And so that taste didn't leave us. And then we left the pub, opened the doors like saloon style, pushed them straight open into the face of the copper who we spoke to earlier.
Oh no.
And who obviously were best pleased with us. And then after the game, the coaches has been sent somewhere else, not where they dropped us off. And he was there again. They said, "Where are they?" And they're around there. And he sent us the wrong way.
No.
So we were we were 5 minutes away from having to make our own way back from Grimsby on a Friday night with just t-shirts on and no coats. So in the end, we legged it full blast, full pace down the road, and managed to just about get back on. But that was part stupidity, part bad luck. But yeah, it wasn't a nice experience. But yeah, there's a lot of them that are just, you get caught in traffic. Everything that does go wrong can go wrong, kind of things. But for absolute dreadfulness, them two stick out quite strongly.
Yeah, that they sound like very good answers. Another one from Fancastian. Gullies asked, having shared a beer with a bunch of very amicable Brighton fans post-match yesterday, who are the who are the friendliest fans in the country? Now, this one I think is very subjective because you might have had a good experience, I might not have, vice versa. So mine is Doncaster fans.
Well, we haven't. Well, we're playing them about 5 times, 5, 6
Yeah.
times. So
Pretty much, and I've bumped into a few after the games. I think the first one was when I know it was actually no, it wasn't the first time, which is why I can't remember it. It was when we got promoted to the Premier League and they stayed up. And you know what? It's just really nice seeing, two sets of fans buzzing. I think we're trying to have like a photo taken or something and sort of kind of got in their way and apologized. And like, don't worry about it, enjoy and stuff like that. Like, hey, we're just happy to be staying up and just like nice to not nice to share that. How about you? Any sort of standouts? I guess let's say it varies from person to person. Well, from team to team even.
Brighton is the obvious one, just because our kind of history with Brighton as well as Neves. I mean, I was talking about this yesterday about how when we played at that god awful Withdean nonsense place.
Oh yeah.
And every time we went there, I signed the petition to go to Fulmer, and because obviously it was built on green belt, so they had to lobby the government and everything else. And they were always absolutely as good as gold with us every single time, regardless of any nonsense, any kind of the results or any bitterness that had gone on in the games. Never an issue with them. Never. Good as gold. Obviously, there were the usual things in the late 90s, early 2000s that we're not speaking of anymore, which, again, they even took in good humour. So,
well, yeah, I think actually Brighton's always a good one. And, I do always remember some of the chants and the ones back where you could argue it was a simpler time and whatever. But actually, at that point, it's just football can be quite good in that way that, yes, there are people who mean it very offensively, and just the being able to bounce it back and there being a little bit of humor within it just to kind of put somebody else down and it kind of go, you know what, fine. They say, never met a bad Brighton fan.
And the other one was Brentford.
Yes,
yeah. With our little battles in League One and then coming up together and all that kind of thing. And it was almost like a weird camaraderie with us for a while, for a time under the Kenny Jackett era. And then even being away, I mean, we ended up driving past the new ground yesterday. It was that much of a mess. And
really?
Yeah. Well, part of the M25 was closed. So we couldn't go clockwise as we planned to.
Yeah.
So we had to go anti-clockwise, and then part of that was gone as well. So that's why, like Matt said, we ended up cutting through central London on the two. We were going over the Thames and stuff at like 11:30 at night. So then we ended up going back past whatever the new place is called, the community stadium. I've shared quite a few pictures of that, how they built it there. But until you see it, it's like some kind of miracle how it even fits.
I drove past it going into Fulham a couple of months back.
I'm really looking forward to going there.
Yeah.
COVID permitting.
Yeah. Right. Next up, Dino. D. Marston asks, "What's the worst Christmas present you've ever received?"
This was similar to one we had last week, where I can't remember anything really bad. I mean, obviously, if it's a jumper or something Christmas related, I'm going to embrace it fully. It might. This is going to be like proper entitled stuff, but it's when I've already got something and I get a second thing, and like, what do you do?
Yeah, I've had a couple of Secret Santas that I think we can sort of class because it's being bought for me, where it's just like you've put zero thought into this, like genuinely like zero thought. You work with me. I've got about 3 interests. Like, Fuck me, just type in Wolves gifts on Etsy, and you'll get something. I'll cope. But yeah, so some people, someone who I used to work with. We'll leave it there.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to say I know exactly what you mean, and I'll probably do. Yeah, but I think it's a similar kind of thing as well. It hasn't happened for a long time, but it's those people who you don't really see very often,
Yeah,
and they obviously all mean well. And if it's like a mug or something, then it's sound because mugs get broke. But if it's like the pictures and stuff for the video viewers, things like that, where you have two of them, like what do you do with the other one? You put it in
Yeah.
a box in case there's a house fire and you need another one, or do you sell it on and then hope that they don't see that you've sold it on, or re-gift? One of
see,
them.
I'd always be dangerous. I'm always dangerous about re-gifting if I can help it. You brought up about getting festive presents. Now, this was a conversation me and my brother were having at the weekend. That I'm not a fan of receiving a Christmas themed present on Christmas Day because don't get me wrong, you know I like a jumper stew.
Born in cotton.
Yeah, born in cotton wool blend. However, if you get me like, if I said a very Christmas one as opposed to festive, it's like I'm not gonna wear it for 12 months, 11 months, because am I going to be wearing it Boxing Day? Not really. And then after that, yeah, I'm not going to be walking around with like a Rudolph or a reindeer jumper. And I got very annoyed. I've got very annoyed repeatedly the last 2 years of people buying my daughter Christmas stuff for like the size she's in currently.
Yeah, so she was grown out. Yeah,
and she's like, she'll have grown out of this in 2 months. And again, she ain't going to be wearing it in a week's time. And it's like hills I will die on, and that's becoming one of them. I can cope with Christmas tree ornaments because the Christmas tree will stay up for another week or so after Christmas. I can get on board with that. That's fine. But yeah, some of the other stuff around it, not for me.
Yeah, my mum did that a couple of years running, where she bought me like a Christmas dress shirt.
Yeah,
And so opening it on Christmas Day, knowing full well that I'll wear it next November.
yeah.
But in my kind of my mind, I'd get it all folded away with the jumpers and everything else, and look forward to wearing it the next year.
Yeah, but I will have forgotten about it. That's my issue. And to be fair, like I forget about most things, but yeah, I don't know. Like that's why I'm not a fan of it. But the trend over the last few years about having Christmas Eve boxes.
Oh, bollocks.
Oh no,
We're not Americans, other than Blake.
What is with them? Don't get it. Don't understand it. But actually, I think that if you're going to give a gift in that sort of way, then Christmas Eve box, fine. But yeah, not a fan. Another thing, and I don't know why I'm stretching this out tangentially because we have other questions and we're 80 minutes into a recording, guys. I've never seen this trend before. But my daughter's been getting cards from her friends at nursery. It's very, very lovely. Some of them have had like little sweets and chocolates with them. Never back in my day, you didn't do it. But like she had like 4, and about 1 in 5 of them had like something with it, like a little Christmas tree chocolate, or one had some Cadbury's buttons, a packet sellotape to it. Never seen that before. I don't know what it is. Is it a Shifnal thing? I don't know.
No, it's not a shift nothing because Corey's had exactly the same thing in reception this year. I mean, Ethan never had it, so it must, unless this is a new thing this year, or that we've been just oblivious to it before. But yeah, because you open his book bag and all the cards are in there, and they are like the terrible chocolate that you get that you have to tie to the tree. It's them. It's them sellotape to the cards.
Yeah.
because they're flat. I presume it's because they're flat, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I didn't understand what I just thought. Oh well, they must have given them out because they've been good at school, and he's just put it in here. But if this makes sense now.
Yeah. So she had like she's had like a candy cane, a couple of Christmas tree sweets, and so never seen it before. Guys, if you're still listening at this point, let us know what is the most interesting present you've had with a Christmas card. Right.
And the other parts about it, do you get a big sheet with everyone's name on?
What, from the nursery?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We didn't last year, and we were a bit annoyed because it was all COVID heavy last year. We were like, oh, are we doing cards or whatever? And then we got like given like 3. We were like, oh, you didn't tell us who we should be doing it with this year. They're really good. They printed off the name of the student with the students, kids. So we kind of that was nice and easy.
Yeah, it's amazing. My mum still had mine from when I was at nursery.
Really?
Yeah.
There needs to be a reunion.
Well, because that came up because I've got things that I painted in nursery. I put them up every year, and because she was going to chuck them out, and I went, "No, you're not doing that. They're mine." So I think this is going to break everything down. That little Santa and Rudolph there above the telly.
Okay.
Bit of cotton wool there. Yeah,
I was going to say, without hopefully breaking mine, you can see for the audio listeners the snowman that my daughter made, which she also then denied making. She claimed one of her friends did it as well, so we won't know. But yeah,
we've got to truly jump the shark.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure my mum's got a Christmas tree ornament my brother made when he was 5, and still puts up on the tree. And he's what, 31? So keep hold of your cherished memories. Just make sure you get your timings right when you give them to people. Right, still on Christmas. Which player would you want to get in Secret Santa, and what would you get them?
Oh God!
See, part of me goes. It's dependent on the player. I think it's Adama Traore. I'd say because it depends on your budget. But here's what I'm thinking: because if you got the option for a couple of them, then I'd go one silly, one serious. Choose which way you want to do it. But you get him a bottle of baby oil. You also get him a copy of something like The Secret. Don't know which one's silly. Don't know which one's serious. But he'll use both, hopefully.
I was thinking, because we mentioned him so many times already, Saiss. Just get him something mental and he'll wear it.
Yeah.
It's not nice and easy. So you look at some of these. I mean, you can't. Every time there's a discussion on who's got the worst gear at the club, and Saiss comes out on top, and then you look and you think, I can top that. I can top that easily. So he looks like the type of person who would wear anything you put in front of him. So it's easy to buy for.
Fair enough. Right. Last but not least, in reference to Brighton and Chelsea, would you rather fight a lion-sized seagull or 5 seagull-sized lions? Now, I've been trying to work out a couple of parameters for this question. The lion-sized seagull, it is as big as the wingspan, not just. So it's still quite large. It's not just the size of a small cat. It's essentially not a lion cub. We could also debate whether the the seagull-sized lion can fly. But initial thoughts, break it down, Stu.
Well, if you've got a lion-sized seagull, then that's going to be
massive.
Well, it's not only massive; it's going to be like an uber swan, and swans are inherently evil anyway. Even now, at 38 years old, well, when I was walking out from work yesterday, they were there, the 2 of them, on the towpath in the canal. Was I scared? Possibly. Did I run past them? Absolutely. Because you know what they can do. That you taught as a young child that swans can break your arm. Has anyone ever known anyone whose arm has been broken by a swan? No.
No, because we're educated on it.
Exactly. So you steer clear of them. So if you've got a massive swan on acid, like like a seagull the size of a lion would be, you want to do everything in your power to keep away from that beast. Absolutely no way. Lion's the size of swan. Swan. Saying that though,
Seagull-sized lion
yeah,
is
I
going to
think
be relatively small, but I'm thinking if it's the size of a wingspan, then we're talking. I really should have looked at the wingspan of a seagull.
No, you can't. They can't be that big. You got to think of them as just as the base of the body. You can't be messing with the formula, because then they would be like they'd be almost like lion cubs anyway. So you got to think that they're effectively kittens, like nasty kittens.
Yeah,
So,
I'm going to say
you'd rather face nasty kittens than a huge killing machine.
Seagull.
Yeah,
I mean, we've spent enough time, Stu, not together, but we've spent enough time on English seaside beaches to have seen seagulls swipe up food out of people's hands. I cannot imagine the size of a lion seagull swooping in. Like it will eat people rather than just eat a baguette, which I saw happen once to somebody.
yeah. I mean, I've seen them. I've seen them take people's the whole art. They'll take your fish and chips, and they actually do. They fly away them easily. So yeah, it's asking for trouble.
It is
clear of them.
It is a genuine spectator sport in Aberystwyth. Like for any of you, depending on how well you know Aberystwyth / the university on the main university campus, just the little front bit outside the student union, just sit on the steps, the graduation steps, and just watch people. If they're holding a sandwich, just spend a day sort of seeing who's going to get their sandwich next. It is fantastic. Might be a bit boring if it's a bit cold, but I was going to say bring some food, but then you can't getting yourself into a cycle then.
If you got one the size of a lion, then you will be the food.
Yeah, exactly. Like imagine that swooping over your head. No. That's probably a good point to end this show, as we've now racked up nearly an hour and a half worth of content on a pretty drab 1-0 game, and talking about lions and seagulls. We will be back, I guess, hopefully to preview the Chelsea game. Hopefully it goes ahead, and again we'll review that game when we can, to be honest. It'll probably be our last show before Christmas as well. Big thanks as always to our sponsors, Pixel Yeti Media and ProPrep. Go check them out at their websites. We're on Wolves Fancast at Wolves Fancast on all our social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Thank you very much for listening. I feel like I'm missing something out. Yes, Fancast Advent. There's still a few days left of that. Make sure you get involved in that to win some very silly prizes. There is still a couple of mystery prizes yet to come. All I'm saying is, Stu, do you have a Christmas or Wolves themed tie?
I can't remember the last time I wore a tie at all. But so no, I don't.
Ah, it's a shame. Well, just saying, if you need a tie clip on Christmas Day for your Santa tie, just saying, keep an eye out for Fancast socials in the next few days. That's the only hint I'll give. But until then, it's goodbye from Stu.
Cats are not evil. Cats are brilliant. Goodbye, everyone.
And it's goodbye from me. See you next time.
Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes